the growing problem is in the arena of the commercial real estate market. We're seeing that there's a continuing reluctance of employees to go back to work. So office buildings perhaps are only 60% occupancy in terms of number of staff that they had before. And that has an impact on the entire infrastructure around the office buildings. So where you have office buildings, you also have many other businesses, from supermarkets to hairdressers to gyms to fast food to restaurants and so on. And all of these businesses will be seeing a reduced footfall because of the reduced number of people going to work, because 40% of them perhaps are working at home. The landlords of these businesses, and that's not just the offices, but also all the businesses around, will be fine as long as the tenants continue to pay the lease payments, which will be typically fixed for 3, 5, 10, sometimes even 20 years. But when those leases mature, many of the tenants are going to say, either it doesn't make sense for me anymore, perhaps I'm a hairdresser and I haven't got the footfall I used to have, or a fast food restaurant, or maybe you're an office where you had 4 floors and now you only need 2 floors because you don't have so many people in the office from day to day, and even those who are in there are hot desking. With in the new world, it's much easier to hot desk than it was in the past. So the demand by the owners, by the occupiers of the real estate, is going to go down in terms of number of floors they're going to take. They're not going to pay and not going to be willing to pay the same rent as they were paying previously. So that has an impact on the landlords, who are going to have, as these leases mature, they're going to have less income, less rent coming in the door. It's going to be much harder to rent those places out to new tenants. Maybe they can at lower rents. But if the rents coming in are much lower and they've got interest rates going out, or interest going out of the door in terms of their fixed term loan, well, we know what's happened to interest rates. They have gone up. They were close to zero. At the headline level, they're 5%. Of course, you're paying more than that when you borrow money from a bank. But for every landlord, when his loan matures, the interest rate at the moment will be higher than it was when he fixed the rate, which means we have a double whammy here. We have rents going down for the landlord, and for the landlord, we have his costs going up, his interest rate, which means, to all intents and purposes, some landlords won't be able to pay the interest, and others will say it's not worth the biscuit, and I'm now not making the kind of return I expected. My real estate is not worth what I paid for it. And I think that a lot of the real estate might be worth less than the security the bank took on it. So when a bank lends money on a commercial building or a property, they might lend 50, 60, 70%. Maybe more for a house, probably a lot more for a house, but certainly for a commercial property, maybe 50, 60, 70%, maybe 80% in some extreme cases. I'm quite sure that many of those properties are worth a lot less than the bank lent. And therefore, some of those properties, some of those landlords are going to default. Not all. I mean, the ones who can afford to pay the rent have a legal obligation to do so that they won't default. But some of them are wrapped up in holding companies and that sort of thing. And it would make sense for them just to simply hand back the keys to the bank and say, thank you very much. The company which borrowed the money is now bankrupt.